Good morning, dear students. Last day we were explaining the chapter 3, the letter A. We will continue that chapter explanation from page number 30, the paragraph which starts with "Never," said my mother. When relatives advised Christy's mother to send him to an institution, the mother said almost fiercely, "Never." She said, "I know my boy is not an idiot. It is his body that is shattered, not his mind. I am sure of that." Every day she prayed to God to get some proof for her faith. She knew it was one thing to believe, but quite another thing to prove. Now Christy is 5, and still he showed no real sign of intelligence. He showed no apparent interest in things except with his toes, more especially with his left foot. Although his natural habits were clean, he could not aid himself. But in this respect, his father took care of him. He used to lie on his back all the time in the kitchen, or on bright warm days out in the garden. A little bundle of crooked muscles and twisted nerves, surrounded by a family that loved him and made him part of their own warmth and humanity. Here, a little bundle of crooked muscles and twisted nerves stands for Christy's siblings, those who took care of him, loved and cared him. But he felt lonely. He was imprisoned in a world of his own. He was completely unable to communicate with others, cut off, separated from them. Christy says a glass wall stood between his existence and theirs. He pushed himself beyond the areas of their lives and activities, and he continued for a long time to run about and play with the rest, but he was unable to break the state of not being free. Then suddenly a miracle happened. In a moment everything was changed. His future life was molded into a definite shape. His mother's faith in him was rewarded, and her secret fear changed into a great success. It happened so quickly, so simply after all the years of waiting, and was not happening anything in his life. But it happened so quickly. It was the afternoon of a cold, grey December day. The streets outside glittered and shined because of the light reflected on snows. The white, tiny pieces of snow sparkled and melted on the window panes, and that snows hung on the large branches of trees like molten silver. The winds outside made a sad and depressed sound. They hit and took up little snows in turning round shapes. They rose and fell at very fresh, strong and sudden winds. And over all, the dull and dark and dirty sky stretched like a dark cover, which stood like a time that is without end or limit. Here, the author is explaining about the day that happened a big change in his life. He is explaining how that day was, the color of the day, the outside wind, the sky. Now we will see what was that miracle happened in his life. Inside, all the family were gathered around the big kitchen fire that lit up the little room with a warm glow and made giant shadows dance on the walls and ceilings. It was a very cold day. They were sitting in the kitchen fire and warming themselves. In a corner, Mona and Paddy were sitting. They were sitting together, and some school textbooks were before them. They were writing down little sums onto a damaged slate by using a bright piece of yellow chalk. Our author, Christy, was close to them. He was closely watching them. His mother kept a few pillows against the wall in order to lift and support him for sitting properly. It was that yellow chalk which attracted him so much. It was a thin and delicate stick of weaved yellow. He had never seen anything like that before, and it showed up so well against the black surface of the slate. Christy was highly fascinated by it. He felt like it was a stick of gold. His fascination is like when we see a gold stick, how we will treat them. Like that, he got a fascination towards that yellow chalk. Suddenly, Christy wanted to do what his sister was doing. Then, without thinking or knowing what exactly he was doing, he reached out and took the stick of chalk out of his sister's hand with his left foot. He was not aware why he was using the left foot to do this. It was a situation to many people as well as to himself. Nobody understood what was the reason why our Christy is using his left foot to take things. He had displayed a curious interest in his toes at an early age, and he had never attempted before to use either of his feet in any way. They could have been as useless as to him as were his hands. Anyway, that day, however, his left foot, apparently by its own choice, reached out and very impolitely took the chalk out of his sister's hand. He held it very tightly between his toes and made a wild sort of scribble with it on the slate. The next moment he stopped. He was little surprised and confused. He looked down to the stick of chalk which was stuck between his toes, and he was not knowing what to do with it next, and he hardly knowing how it got there. Then he looked up and understood that everybody had stopped and was watching him. This was the miracle that happened to his life. The rest of the chapter we will see in the next class. Thank you.